Hello, this is my drawing of Khabib Nurmagomedov, the UFC lightweight champion from Dagestan, Russia, and he has an upcoming title defense. This was done with my usual combination of pencils, and I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later. And this is my second drawing of Khabib. If you want to see more of my MMA related artwork, there is a video and I'll put the link in the description. And that video was made just before the first DC Stipe fight. Now I'm going to be showing you the drawing process for this one, and I'm going to be talking about the drawing and about Khabib. I mentioned that I used my usual combination of pencils. I usually use a graphite pencil for sketching and lighter shading. I use charcoal for most of the shading and darker values, and I use a black colored pencil for details and some texture. Here I actually used vine charcoal. I decided to use vine charcoal for Khabib's hat because vine charcoal is lighter in value. It's not quite as black, it's more gray. And it's very soft and it's very easy to move around and lift up. So I thought that would be perfect for Khabib's hat because I could control the level of value and just easily remove the charcoal and draw highlights where I want to. Now the thing is that his hat appears a lot darker now, even though it's a very light color. But it won't be so when I shade his face. It's going to look a lot lighter in comparison to the face. Plus I also need to pull some highlights on the hat to make its shape and its texture look more realistic. Like I said, I like using a combination of pencils, and here you can see me using a charcoal pencil for some of these darker areas around the ears and eyebrows and some of the details like that. And for blending I mostly use tortillons and brushes. Now I'm using a pencil eraser to pull some of these highlights and work on the texture of this hat to give it its final appearance. And I'm going to be doing the same thing on the right side as well, but now I'm adding some more detail and shading to the face. Khabib has very deep set eyes, so I'm working on that. I love adding a black colored pencil on top of charcoal because black colored pencil can be sharpened and holds the tip better, and it just gives you a little more control when shading and when drawing detail, but it also allows you to add certain textures and maybe imitate the appearance of the skin, etc. Now I'm working on the beard. This area under the chin is one of the darkest areas in the drawing. And as you can see, I just like using that charcoal that I laid down and just moving it around and using it to shade the face and neck, to do some initial shading, initial blocking in, as it were. And then later I move in with the blending tools and a black colored pencil to work on the facial features a little bit more. So like I said, Khabib has an upcoming title defense against Dustin Poirier. Dustin didn't exactly come out of nowhere, but his interim championship was a bit of a surprise for most people. He is certainly one of the top fighters in the division, but honestly I didn't really expect him to beat Max Holloway, and I think that Khabib also said that he was surprised as well. And I'm also kind of sad that Max started out in the lightweight division with a loss, but it is what it is. I do expect Khabib to win against Dustin. And I think that he's probably going to win doing the same thing that he always does. But the thing about Dustin is that he seems to be one of the heaviest punches in the division. I think that his power may have been a little bit too much for Max, even though it was a fairly even fight. So Khabib could get caught, but I just think it's very unlikely, and that the fight is going to go down as it normally does with most Khabib's matches. He has a perfect record so far, a most impressive achievement, and together with Tony Ferguson they make two of the most accomplished lightweights in history. So it would be good if we could eventually see a fight between the two most accomplished fighters. Khabib himself suggested that Tony Ferguson will probably be next, or that he would like Tony Ferguson to be next. Tony is also on a monstrous winning streak. So even though that fight was cancelled a number of times, they may yet have a chance to meet in the octagon. I've done most of the shading on the face and the head. And I'm just pulling some highlights with a pencil eraser. Like I said in my introduction, I've done drawings of many fighters, and you should really check out my other videos. Although I draw all kinds of stuff, not just MMA related, because I follow MMA and boxing rather casually, as I do with any other sport. Now onto the hand and the finger. The thing about hands is that they are fairly complex to draw, but honestly they are not as complicated as some of the other parts. It's just that people often neglect them or focus too much on other areas, and when you spend a lot of energy on drawing the face or clothes or some other stuff, then you tend to kind of rush through the hands, even though that tends to spoil the overall impression about drawing. So I'm gonna have to be patient with the hand and try to make it as realistic and as detailed as possible, so that it doesn't ruin the overall appearance of the drawing. I mean, I've put in a lot of work on the hat and the face, so the hand and the arm has to be detailed as well. As for the t-shirt and the clothes, I'm gonna simplify that a little bit. That's not a problem. So now I'm shading the bicep and the forearm. I am just playing a time lapse here, but you can see my technique even with this faster version, and you can see it in other videos as well. I like to spread the charcoal around to establish some base value, and then refine the shapes and textures with a black colored pencil. it's a combination that I keep using and that works for me. As for the types of pencils that I use, I mean the brands, I don't think they're that important, although generally I tend to prefer woodless charcoal pencils because they're easier to sharpen and they don't break as much. And as for the black colored pencils, well, you can find whatever is available to you. The graphite pencils which I use are either Koh-i-Noor or Staedtler, even though in my drawings they play a less important role because I mostly use them for sketching. So with the t-shirt I used a combination of charcoal pencils and vine charcoal. I first drew some of the darker areas with a charcoal pencil and blended them with a brush to push the charcoal into the paper, and then I went over that with vine charcoal and just started blending that, moving that around, and trying to create these folds in the t-shirt to make it look more realistic. And I'm just putting a few finishing touches and details on the t-shirt, and adding a little bit more texture to it. So now the drawing is done, and I've also sprayed it with a fixative as I always do. The only thing left to do, as usual, is to sign it. I like to sign it with a small inconspicuous signature. And there it is, the finished drawing. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope you like this drawing. Check out my other videos. Thanks for watching.